So the aims of this project is to apply visual, chemical and genetic analysis to these unique collections of archived ortholids that are found in Greenland to understand and predict population dynamics of cod. And for those of you who don't know about ortholids, they're found sort of calcareous structures within the head of cod, and they have been used extensively in fisheries science. The visual analysis will actually, by looking at growth chronologies, you're able to provide indices of growth over time. The chemical analysis would give you some indications of what these fish have been eating, and the DNA analysis would show you something about the population structure and evolution over time, or whether they're adapted to the local climate. Particularly interesting questions is how many populations are there? What is the importance of cod coming in potentially from Iceland? How fast did cod grow? And what causes these enormous changes in distribution and abundance we see among cod populations? And also to predict where are they in the future. So starting out, I'll show you some from a growth chronology of cod in the Godthåb from 1926 to 2010. And as you can see here, these are like trees or rings in a tree trunk, so you can actually tell the different years apart. So you can actually look at the growth over time in these cod populations. And we used ortholids from the archives, looked at growth, but we also extracted protein from, there's a protein within the ortholid, and combined these analyses could show us how fast does these cod grow, and what do they actually eat, or more, whether the trophic level in the ecosystem. So very briefly, this is sort of cod growth back from 1920. So we had a period of decreasing growth from 20 to 45. Then we had increased growth to 1970, and then decreased growth again from 1970 to 2000. And these actually fits very well with the abundance of cod in Greenlandic waters over time. If you look at the delta in 15N, about change in trophic level, you can see there's a lot of variation. And it's not me who's been drawing these lines, and you have to refer to Peter, but you can see that there was a low level before, again 1970, and which increased after 1970. Also, when you look at the delta in 13C, you see some changes. Again, you have a lot of variation, but you see the changed level. And again, it's around 1970 that these levels change. So basically, the chronology of growth in stable isotopes show that there are major changes in the ecosystem in the Nuuk Fjord area in the last 85 years. And the transition points are around 1945, 1970, and 1995. And these transitions are related to changes in the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation. So, in relation to genetics, how many cod populations are there in Greenland? And the general hypothesis is that there's a population on the east coast and the west coast, the fjord populations, and cod coming in from Iceland. So our idea was to look at genetic mapping in time and space. What is the contemporary patterns, and how is the temporal stabilities of these patterns? We did extensive sampling, and you can see we had a historic sample and a contemporary sample from all these areas, and we sampled inshore and offshore fish, and also cod from Iceland. And the contemporary sampling was done by fishing, and then we went down to the basement in the Greenland Institute for Nature Research, found these historical ortholids, got some contemporary samples, also ortholid samples, and then we did the extraction in specific clean labs, because there's not so much DNA on an ortholid, and you can easily get it contaminated with contemporary DNA. And based on that, we drew a genetic map. This is a discriminant function analysis, and it showed that there were 4 groups, which were determined by inshore, offshore, and west and east, and we color-coded those in green and red in order to be able to show them on the same on the sampling map as you saw before. As you can see here, you have Iceland inshore cod, which is the red. Then you have offshore and East Greenland cod, which is this color. You have offshore Greenland cod, which is the green, and inshore, which is this dark purple. And then you have a mixture around here. And if you go into more detail, if you look at the individual levels, this square represents sort of a population sample, while each line represents an individual. So in some areas you have what looks as if it's really pure populations. so around here, and then other areas you have what appears to be mixed, so you have individuals with different color codings here, belonging to different populations. In some areas, like around the Nuuk area, you have temporal stability, so you see the same pattern, you see this, actually the same population is still there over time, both here and also to the north here. You have the same population in time. But in other areas, you actually see major changes. So in some areas, you see population replacement. So like here, you see you have the green population first, and now it's more Icelandic fish. And in other areas, you see something that looked really pure, like it was only the green fish. But now it appears that there's a lot of population mixing going on in that area over time. So at least in a fisheries management context, we can say that not all the cod came from Iceland. There are at least 3 different spawning components. Some areas are temporally stable, other more dynamic. And we have a really strong tool for determining where the fish come from and where they are moving about in relation to climate change. So we're also trying to model this, and we have data on cod distributions along the coast of Greenland. We have GIS predictors, environmental variables, and we are using spatial distribution models to try to fit this data to the distribution, and we have actually quite good success in doing so. So the overall conclusions is that we have seen major shifts in cod growth and trophic level over the last 100 years, and we have several populations of cod in Greenlandic waters. And population structure has sometimes been dynamic, in other places more stable. And the predictions of the cod distribution in the future looks really promising. Thank you.